Good people, good people. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. We have such a good show. I am stoked about this material, man. Super duper cool. If you were here yesterday, then you saw we went over a lot of chapter one of part one, the Atlas, of this AI created document that analyzed my work alongside 19 other authors, and we're answering some no, we are providing answers for some very deep philosophical questions regarding the concept of money, its use, and the belief systems surrounding it. So today we are going to go through chapter two of it. I know I promised you that Miss Red was going to be here today. Something actually came up that had to do with some family matters, so we had to postpone until next week, and we will um, deal with those details. You know what I'm saying, when we get there, but likely it'll probably be next Wednesday. Anyway, that is also super exciting. But this right here is the place to be. The place to be. Sorry, I just didn't have my screen share on the ready. So the first thing that I have to say is the housekeeping. Folks, if you are here, consider liking the video. Okay, you see that like button looking all sexy, looking all subtle and supple and delicious. Go ahead and take your left finger, lick it, tap it. Okay. Um, hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channels. You know what I'm saying? I have paint on my hands from work. Paint. He doesn't wash his hands. Yes, I do. Sometimes you just kind of do it lazily. Anyway, if you are here, you are in for real conversations, good people. We talk about everything from natural law to religion, which is the good, the bad, and the ugly. We talk about money, anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated from the shadows by people who do not have our best interests at heart, perhaps because they are completely evil. I don't know. But we are not bashing faith systems here or calling people names for having a religion or picking a faith system. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects of the stories that we have the most faith in, the ones we have the most stake in, and looking at how those stories help shape society. But that examination has to sit right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, good people. And the question that we always have to return to on this channel is, what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of one's inner storyteller and how it works? And if any of that makes you uneasy, angry, or uncomfortable in any way, please understand that although you are encouraged to stay, soak in this content, learn something, maybe confront some of those feelings, you are welcome to leave at any time, so long as you tap that like button. And I mean tap it like you like it, okay? Now, the first thing that I want to get into here is, and I hope this is big enough. I skipped this, and I should not have in the last video. So, what this book does not do, okay, and this is talking about what this text does not do. This book does not claim to have covered everything the subject raises, and Appendix B states the boundary in full rather than leaving it implicit. What could not be settled, what sources could not be reached, and what a further volume would need. It is worth reading before treating this book's silences as settled ground rather than open ground. I really wanted to say that out loud because, first of all, it's just great that it even thought to include that. Or maybe, the uh, uh, I was gonna say the team. It might just been one person. I don't know. The way that this came about, maybe a human thought of this, but it's great that this is even in here. But I really want to go through these episodes with full transparency that this is um not going to provide you with exactly what to do and exactly what to know and exactly what we got wrong and exactly what we should, like can do about it. It's not going to give us all of those things. It's going to scratch the surface very nicely, and that's about it. Because that's all that a single document can do, and that's all that these episodes can do for an individual, right? An individual comes and they come here and they have a good time, and then they take what they learn here and test it and use it and look up things and do the rest themselves, fill in the gaps. Okay. Um, Another important point. One open question is worth naming here because it is the largest this book raises without answering, and every design in the blueprint eventually runs into this question. Who has standing? Standing, a very important word in the judicial system. Who has standing to change a running currency's rules once it is already issued and already in people's hands? Who can claim I am worthy of setting the rules straight once the tester currency is already in use and people are buying their eggs with it? I cannot stress how important this question is. Okay, or I cannot overstate how important this question is. Because for me, everybody that argues against my work with um, a technocratic solution, and I don't mean argues like like belligerently. I just mean argues against my work, as far as opinion goes, with a technocratic solution. I'm like, you're not gonna be able to erase the human hand, and whose human hand is worthy, right? He who without sin cast the first stone. Come on, and throw the stone if you have not sinned. Take the stand, take the stage, right? Like who? That's you. You're not talking about a little bit of power when you talk about the rules of money. You're not talking about a little bit of sophistication. You're talking about grand complexity, grand sophistication, hella factors to take into account. All of these things. You're not going to totally erase the human hand, and you can't even really trust the technocratic situation because the humans have to program it and maintain the if bots crash, systems implode. So the human hand will never actually be erased, and who is worthy is a great question. And again, this book says we don't answer this question, right? Oh, got a comment from Nick. Catherine Fitz' first question is always about governance. Okay, because governance is the factor that matters most. Now we're going to go ahead and skip to chapter 2 and get it going. Inspiration from indigenous systems are worth a close look. What do you mean by that? Tell me more. Tell me more, brother. I agree in general, but tell me more. Is this where are we at? Is this the chapter 1 ends and chapter? Oh no, I went too far. Here we go. Sorry, I went to the end of chapter 3 instead of the end of chapter 1. All right, chapter 2. Ah, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is does monetary value exist? Oh, I didn't mean to remove it. There we go. Does monetary value exist? Okay, real quick regarding how they have operated in times gone by to solve similar right monetary and stuff issues. For sure. I mean, obviously village life is very deeply different than what we have here, but yeah, for sure. And that's even if you're just talking about villages. I.e., they're deeply in tune with nature. Absolutely. Does monetary value exist? What does your mind do when you hear such a question? Let me know in the chat. Like when you, if nobody's ever asked you, does this question before? I'm sure this does not come up ever. Why? Because who cares? Who cares if monetary value exists when they will put you in a cage or take your life over debt? Who cares if monetary value actually exists when the stakes are so high that this thing called monetary value is tied to the very food you get to eat every day, the clean water you get to drink every day? Hopefully, drink some water. God damn it. At least some coconut water. I love coconut water. Does monetary value exist? Does not show up in dinner time conversation, in social media conversation, in divide and conquer news network conversation. It doesn't show up because it's easily answered. Everybody already kind of knows the answer. And we're going to go over what that answer may be and what that answer is, in my opinion, which is no, it does not exist. But y'all knew that already. Y'all didn't come here to discover that part. So how do I do it last time? There we go. So let's see what the book that put my work next to 19 other authors has to say about one of the questions that I covered most on this channel. Introduction. A woman works a second job to keep current on a mortgage. A father delays a hip replacement because his insurance deductible would consume 3 months of savings. A young couple postpones having children until their combined student debt reaches a number they can live with. None of these people are confused about arithmetic, right? It's not a purely arithmetic question. Does monetary value exist? Real stakes are here, right? They know exactly how many dollars separate them from what they want. They organize years of their lives around narrowing that gap. They tell any of them, quote, monetary value does not exist, end quote. And the claim will sound, at best, willfully blind to the facts of their situation, and at worst, an invitation to stop paying attention to a debt that will be collected whether or not they believe in it. Oh, Sarah's here. Hey, Sarah. You should rewind this about 4.5 minutes and then let it rock. And I will meet you back here when I said hello to you. Boom. This chapter takes that claim very seriously. Seriously enough, in fact, to find out exactly what would have been true, what would have to be true for it to be right, and what it does not and cannot mean. Okay? The claim belongs to Soul Expression, the organizing thesis of the Religion of Monetary Value series, and its 2 accompanying books. That's funny that it thinks the series is accompanying the books. That it thinks the books are accompanying the series when really it's like the series is accompanying the books, right? I want people to have my books. But I make the series so that, we can expand on the topics in the books. I don't know. Maybe they both accompany each other. Anyway, it matters to people above, to the people explained above, because what follows from it differs enormously depending on which of the 2 things it turns out to mean. If it means a student loan is not a physical fact the way that a fractured hip is, that is close to uncontroversial and changes nothing about whether the loan must be repaid. If it means the whole apparatus of monetary compulsion, a number in a ledger commanding someone's labor, health, and years, is sustained entirely by collective participation and could, in principle, be built or unbuilt, that is a claim about the mechanism holding a working life in place, worth getting right, rather than dismissed from either direction. And that, my friends, is a beautiful sentence. Okay? It's basically saying, because I like to, I just like to break things down a little bit as I go. It's basically saying if your argument is that the monetary value is just not a physical thing, like you can't lift up a rock and find monetary value laying there, then that's not even a controversial statement, right? Um, if, sorry, I'm just refreshing my memory here. If, on the other hand, you're more so saying what I do say in the series, that monetary value is, or the apparatus of monetary compulsion, pardon me, because that is a more accurate way to put it. The apparatus of monetary compulsion means you feel like you got to do it. Society is like tugging on you to do something, right? Is sustained entirely by collective participation and could be built and unbuilt. Then that implies a lot of responsibility on the participants, on the congregation, as I call it, of the religion of monetary value. Okay, that's the us that, you know what I'm saying? I just bought lunch today, right? That's, pay for lunch. You can't wait until we all come together and dismantle the monetary system to pay for lunch. You got to eat, right? Let's continue. Let's continue. I hope y'all are having as good a time as I am. Soul Expression has himself corrected the common misreadings of his thesis, and this chapter takes the correction as the target to be examined. A broader target would mean refuting a claim that resembles his own but is not it, and calling the result a refutation. He, he states his actual target directly, correcting the misreading just described. Quote, is what I said in a previous episode. The original lie is that monetary value exists. That value can that value can be looked at the way we look at monetary value. Sorry. The original lie is that monetary value exists. That value, real value, can be looked at the way we look at monetary value. Okay? That those two things can be the same. The way that we use monetary value actually does translate to what we value in life. Okay? And I say that's impossible. Lost my place. I think I'm right around here. That's the original lie in my working on this channel, from my clarification stream. He has, quote, no beef with the concept of currency. True. He finds nothing wrong with record keeping. True. As such. And he completely agrees that a knowing, willing, voluntary, informed contract creates real owing between the parties to it. True. What he denies is narrower and more specific than any of that. That monetary value is a that monetary value, a quantifiable, transferable worth, things and acts are supposed to really possess. Okay? A worth that things and acts are supposed to really possess is a fact of nature, independent of anyone's belief in it, pardon me, the same way that mass or gravity or grass or lightning is. Right? Both load-bearing words in that denial are a bit ambiguous, and most of this chapter's work is holding that ambiguity still long enough to see what survives it. Monetary value is not, quote, value in general. A narrower question than the one this book asks everywhere about whether prices can carry honest information. Okay, a narrower question than the one this book asks elsewhere, pardon me, about whether prices carry honest information. And exist in this material does two different jobs: natural physical and socially operative. Okay, natural physical existence, socially operative existence. And the claim can be true under one, false under the other, without inconsistency. What follows separates these senses, shows the claim in its narrowest form, close to trivially true under the first sense, and shared by thinkers who otherwise agree on almost nothing. That shows that under the weaker sense, the claim looks false on its face, and then asks whether once monetary value itself splits into two things, a substantive claim survives disambiguation, or the dispute dissolves into people talking past one another. It does not dissolve. What remains is one of this book's genuinely open questions, weighed honestly rather than resolved by definition. So I know some of that may have sounded weird. I didn't emphasize some of the correct words as I was reading, but it made sense as I was hearing myself. Basically, there's a split between if monetary value is to be looked at this way or this way, then what soul expression is claiming actually over here has to be thoroughly examined and we can see what survives and what doesn't. And over here, it does kind of seem false that he's just basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater and being too hasty with his conclusions, which I don't disagree with. I think over here is what I'm talking about. Okay, so I hope you follow. It's not all of it is not this complicated. Okay. Plus, I could stand to read a little bit better sometimes. Anyway, two words that are not one. I think this is where it gets into like a slight difference in diction and word use, word choice that between me and Mark Passio. It may be a little further down. Two words that are not one. Monetary value is Soul Expression's own phrase for the second of five beliefs that he catalogs as constituting the religion of monetary value. Now, that's a little bit off. I just want to say this for the record. These five beliefs, I did an episode called The Five False Core Beliefs of the Religion of Monetary Value, make up the core beliefs that someone has to adopt in order for the mind control to like set in my opinion. But I say that more so as my observation than a fact of human psychology. I think that something very similar may be true about most human beings, but I don't think there's enough human beings on earth that fall directly in line with how I worded these five core beliefs that the statement is accurate on its face for everybody in the world. A lot of what I say is worded in absolutes, but I may sometimes accidentally just mean like Americans or just mean like Westerners or something. Just saying for the record. But for conversational purposes and in understanding the topic at hand, yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda. These five beliefs, and the second one is monetary value exists, constitute the religion of monetary value. Now, monetary value exists in nature. It actually exists, right? Oh, this is supposed. I said monetary value, but I meant to say money. Money exists in nature. It actually exists. Money does exist, but monetary value does not. It names a narrower target than the value broadly, which splits across the wider material this book surveys into at least three further incompatible senses. Value as the relation a market draws between comparable things. Value as an event realized and exhausted in the present moment of use. Value as a general disposition living things have to pursue outcomes. Okay? General disposition living things have to pursue outcomes. Those distinctions belong to the question this volume asks about pricing. This chapter holds monetary value fixed to soul expression's own sense. A worth token, a worth a token, or an act. A worth that a token or an act is supposed to really possess. Sorry. And cross references rather than relitigates the wider question. The second word carries the heavier load. Real and exist across this literature. They name two things depending on which of the two conditions is doing the deciding. Call the first real, as in physical, existing as a natural fact independent of anyone's belief or agreement. The way a stone or a magnetic field is there whether anyone notices. Call the second real, socially operative, existing derivatively, because and only for as long as a pattern of collective behavior, obedience, or acquiescence keeps enacting it or enabling it, the way a law, a border, or a currency's exchange rate is there. These two senses are used throughout what follows exactly as glossed here and nowhere else. The difference is not academic, hair splitting. It changes the answer. You take a $100 bill as paper, cotton linen stock, green ink, a serial number. It is real physical, and nobody disputes that. The bill's worth, the fact that it can be handed to a stranger for groceries, is a different kind of fact from the paper it is printed on. You swap the paper for a different substrate entirely, like a bank database entry, a coin, a wampum belt, a clay tablet pressed with a reed stylus. And the worth survives while the physical carrier changes completely. It's not paper, or it's not that paper. Whatever worth is, it is not glued to any one physical object the way that weight is glued to paper. It travels between objects, sharing nothing physically in common. This is the distinction the rest of the chapter turns on. A token can be real physical, while what it is worth is at most real socially operative, or in the strongest reading of the thesis's opponents, not real in that sense either. Which of those two it is this chapter's actual question. So is monetary value real physical? No. It's not there, right? Is it real socially operative? Yes. Absolute and tootin' right? So there's a or this way. How do you do it? This way. Get smaller. There we go. You got to yell at it, monetary value is not a fact of nature. There's no such thing, and value does not get priced in nature. Nature does not stagnate even for 2 seconds and then, give a market response price change. No, nature provides value that you can eat, create shelter with, invent things and technologies with, learn from. Nature provides things of actual value, and how much that value is worth depends on the right now moment of the receiver. He who receiveth the value from nature is receiving a worth amount that you cannot quantify by saying this number. It's just worth whatever it's worth to him, to her, in that moment. And the same thing given 1,000 times, on the 436th time, it's worth a lot less, likely. It's worth a lot less, likely, by that time. Okay, anything that you've gotten 400 times, it's worth a lot less than when you got it the first time. Nature is alive. Thank you, Nick. Nature is alive. So our relationship to what we value is as alive as I am, as you are. That's why prices, that's why the monetary value game creates chaos. But let's get back into it. So, what almost everyone agrees on. Before locating the one live disagreement in this material, it is worth stating how much agreement there already is, because it is one of the widest convergences in this book. 7 independent lineages, sharing no common school, no common century, and in several cases, no awareness of one another's existence, all deny that monetary value is real physical. Mark Passio, whose natural law corpus supplies this book's axiological baseline, states it as bluntly as anyone. There is no such thing as money, folks. It does not exist in reality. It is a contract, and a contract only exists in one place, and that is the mind. It does not exist in nature. It only exists in the mind. It's my best Mark Passio impression. Soul expression reaches the identical conclusion from an entirely different premise. A diagnosis of belief installation rather than a natural law mechanism. Monetary value, I say, isn't a feature of reality in the way magnetism, gravity, or mass are. It is just a shared story. And that's from the Religion of Monetary Value, Part 7 episode. Bernard Lietaer's definition of money, as characterized in 2 independent reviews of The Future of Money, places money's genus in agreement rather than substance. He says it's an agreement within a community to use something as a medium of exchange. George Monbiot, I'm sorry. From A Better Way to Make Money, Common Dreams in 2009. Similarly, the European Business Review's notice of the same book, Charles Einstein reaches the same genus from cultural narrative rather than sociology. He says money is a system of social agreements, social agreements, meanings, and symbols that develop over time. It is, in a word, a story. Welcome to the inner storyteller. It is, in a word, a story, a genus. It is shared within law, nation, religion, and science. No, law, nation, religion, and science. Jeffrey Ingham, writing sociology rather than preaching or reform, reaches the same genus by a third route. Money is, quote, he says, is constituted by social relations that exist independently of the production and exchange of commodities. Guys, I say this all the time. There are only 2 ingredients to getting projects done. For human beings to take an idea and manifest that idea into reality, or cause it to be manifest in reality. Only 2 ingredients that are absolutely required. Now, there are tons of ingredients that are required for specific projects. But for all of the projects, the only 2 ingredients you cannot take out of the equation and still have the resulting manifest reality of the project or of the idea coming to life are work and knowledge. And I always say it backwards because it sounds better that way. But it said chronologically, knowledge and work. That's it. That's the natural requirement for your ideas to come to life. Whether they are ideas that are super simple, like your body is in this location and you want it across the room in a different location, how to get there, that idea, or it's an idea that's like, I want to build a school, and a curriculum or some shit. Whatever your ideas, knowledge and work are the only 2 ingredients nature requires. Nature does not require a transaction of any kind take place. Nature does not require the books be kept accurately. Nature does not require a debt must be repaid for the project to get done. What nature requires for a project to get done, okay, is knowledge, and work. Whether that's a lot of people or one person or a half a person. I'm kidding. I say it all the time, good people. Very important to really, 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 like, this is something that you could say and people will nod their head and be like, yeah, that's true. But but we still believe that actually, no, actually a transaction is required by nature. That's what we believe by our actions, right? But it's one of those things that, like, we just go along to get along. Anyway, I'm not judging nobody. George Knapp, a century earlier, in working within Orthodox state theory, states the same point as a decisive test. Monetary validity is, quote, he says, not the issue, but the exception, which is divisive. Exception with an A. Oh, excuse me. Acceptation. Acceptation. Acceptance. We would have said acceptance today. Acceptation, which is decisive, meaning has to be socially accepted. Meaning the physical reality of monetary value does not exist to that person either, a century earlier. And mainstream peer-reviewed monetary economics formalizes the same claim differently again. Money is a network good. Its usefulness to one user rising with the number of others accepting the same unit, arrived at from ordinary trade theory with no stake in this question at all. Corroborating this convergence from outside philosophy altogether is the numismatic record. I'm going to look this word up right now. Share this tab instead. Boop. Numismatic relates to the study or collection of currency, including coins, paper, money, tokens, and related metals.
Numismatic.
Numismatic. All right. I should have left that tab up. I closed it. Just in case I got to look up another word. So, corroborating this convergence from outside philosophy altogether is the numismatic record. Greek electrum and Roman as coins verified widely in weight and fineness, while their unit of account remained stable for centuries. And Frankish kings between 457 and 751 AD issued coin with, in historical records' own phrase, complete liberty and no resulting market confusion. That's big citation. Value tracked acceptance, not metal content, centuries before any of the authors above were writing. Okay, value tracked acceptance. Value did not track a physical increase or decrease in physical monetary value. It tracked acceptance. Right? When we read these documents, we have to read every word. Value tracked acceptance, not metal content, centuries before any of us wrote our theories. Once, quote, physical fact and socially sustained convention are held apart, this convergence is close to forced by the terms themselves, not an empirical discovery any school made. A fact whose only mechanism is collective belief cannot, by definition, also be mind independent. The claim that monetary value is real, physical, is a position that no author surveyed here actually holds. It is the shared implicit target both Passio and Soul Expression refute, each from a different first premise, worth naming once and setting aside as settled. The disagreement worth this chapter's remaining space lies entirely past this point. A dispute that dissolves on inspection. So this is where this is the part where it gets into some word choice that looks like a disagreement, but is actually a complete agreement between myself and Mark Passio's work. Which, of course, is going to be an agreement, as he's pretty much he had so much content out that I just binged his stuff when I discovered his stuff, and so he's a great inspiration for a lot of my work in the first place. But yeah, it says not every apparent disagreement in this literature is real, and this material supplies a clean case of one that looks flatly contradictory and, on careful reading, turns out not to be a disagreement at all. Passio's flattest statement denies money as a whole. He says, "There is no such thing as money, folks. It does not exist in reality." Soul Expression, by contrast, insists money, the token, is real without qualification. Paper money exists, a digital ledger entry exists, a gold brick stamped with a symbol exists. All of them exist in the ordinary sense of existence. What he denies is the value the token is supposed to carry. Read as claims about the same thing, these flatly contradict each other. But read Passio's supporting argument rather than just the headline sentence, and the contradiction completely disappears. His case never turns on the on the paper's physical non-existence. It turns entirely on the belief dependence. Quote, he says, Mark Passio says, "The only thing that imbues it with its power is belief." And in the very next breath, after his most sweeping denial, he concedes exactly the operative point at issue. I know that the influence that money wields in the world over people and over their minds and over their hearts and over their actions and behavior, I'm well aware that that exists. The influence of the ideas of money and monetary value, basically. His examples are always about the imbued belief, never about the physical existence of the thing. So map this way, Passio's money, Soul Expression's money, Passio's money into imbued belief-dependent worth, Soul Expression's money into the physical or digital token. The apparent contradiction turns out to be we're just agreeing with each other. The dispute that does not dissolve is also very important, though. And then I think we're going to close out with, let me see, reified property or sustained relation. Oh, actually, no, we got to read that too. So let's just keep going, guys. Let's just keep it moving. I'm having fun. You're having fun. That's why you're here. The dispute that does not dissolve. One disagreement that this material does not dissolve this way, and it is the one this chapter exists to weigh rather than explain away. Soul Expression's two books restate their central claims many times across 20,000 combined lines. This chapter cites each pillar claim once at its clearest statement, on the understanding that the repetitions restate rather than extending it. The inner storyteller gives an account of how illegitimate power actually operates. I am very excited. I remember this. Okay. Of an unaccountable elite's authority. Soul Expression writes, I say real only because our obedience temporarily makes it real. They have no power without acquiescence, consent, or authorization. An explicit affirmative grant of real, as in socially operative, status to a social fact whose entire casual power runs on nothing but collective enactment. Okay, so keep that in mind. I claim in some of my material, I believe this was an episode. I say real. I think this is probably episode 3 of the Religion of Monetary Value series. I say real only because our obedience temporarily makes it real. Okay? And I say they have no power without, and I give qualifiers. Once they get something from this list from us, now they do have power that's quote unquote real, as in socially operative. Whereas in the same video series, he makes the identical structural claim about monetary value. Quote, isn't a feature of reality the way that magnetism, gravity, and mass are. It's just a shared story, a collective agreement drawn up by a very select, very manipulative few that only works because enough people are running the same false story at the same time in a given space. Nothing about that value exists independently of the belief that it does. Right? So this is the same argument that I'm making about power, but I'm saying that the power can be real, and I'm saying that the monetary value cannot actually be real. It's not real, period. That's the kind of language that I go with. Um, so let me see. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Uh, X's operative force, meaning the government or whatever, the government's operative force runs solely through and only for as long as sustained collective belief. For power, he draws the conclusion that the power is therefore real in the weaker relational sense. For monetary value in the same breath, he denies the value even that. The fact remains, nobody can put or give reality to monetary value in conversation because it doesn't exist. Right? And basically, it's saying that when you make these two claims next to each other or in the same body of work, you're contradicting yourself because you're saying on one hand things that are only real by social interaction and sustained belief are real for that duration, and the things that are and for monetary value that breaks that rule. Right? That's what it's kind of pointing out. These two claims, it continues, power is real because obedience makes it real, and then monetary value is not real, even in the weaker sense granted to power, cannot both be true as stated. They are contraries, not contradictories. Both could, in principle, be false, and the strain in the second claim does not by itself make the opposite true. But Soul Expression's own material licenses a claim he never states. If whatever exercises casual force on the social world solely because and only for as long as sustained collective belief continues counts as real in the socially operative sense, his own stated principle for power, then monetary value's casual force, which by his own description runs by exactly that mechanism, should count as real in the same sense, by the identical reasoning applied to the one chapter over. No author draws this conclusion. It follows from Soul Expression's own premise, applied where he does not apply it, and it is offered here in this chapter's own construction, not by any author's stated position. And it belongs here. It's great that it's here. So let me do some clarifying on this here. Basically, hey, make me bigger. There we go. Basically, there is a reason why there are contraries here. Yes, our obedience, acquiescence, and consent does grant a temporary power to the individuals in the costumes that do the enforcement of the rules laid down by the legislature and all of that. Right? Those costumed individuals do get a quote unquote temporarily real power from our obedience. At the same time, I do not grant any reality to monetary value, even in the sense that everybody believes that it's real and we literally live our lives around it. I went to work today and I clocked in today myself, right? And I clocked out at the end of my shift, right? On one hand, I can't excuse, meaning just kind of reason away in a punchline, that contrary nature of those two things. But I can say that when I speak about money in this way, my intuitive answer to this question, to this dichotomy, well, how can the power be real and the monetary value not fit the same logic? I would say that before it's that the monetary value is real in my mind, It's that the power is actually just as false as the monetary value. And my mistake is in granting reality to the power piece, right? Because the way that I would look at it, if I was to take that a step further, is the actual power that I was previously saying is going to the so-called authority figures is actually remaining with the obedient party, because it's the obedient party that holds the keys to making the so-called power not work anymore. As soon as you shut that off, even if you're in chains at the point that you shut it off, if you shut it off, they don't have your mind anymore. They don't have the actual thing that they were controlling, which is the mind, right? So a way, and I'm not trying to run away from the question, but a way to reconcile it is to go, okay, well, if one of them basically has to go for the sake of logic, I would say it's the granting of the power to the authority. And to fix that, basically say that the power actually remains with the obedient person who doesn't exercise said power in the way that we would think is going to happen if we say the phrase exercise that power, right? They do exercise the power. It's that they exercise their power to create um, power in their abuser, or in their oppressor, or in the one that they believe has vested authority somehow. So I'll put it like that, and I'm not, again, running from the question. I think these things are very fun for me as a philosopher to get into. Well, these two things can't be true at once. How to reconcile this. But also, it is a very, in the grand scheme, small fry, right? It's a small fish, because at the end of the day, it's a little more preachy to say monetary value doesn't exist. We have to talk about it like this, right? We got to be dead only true about the monetary value existence not being real. And with the power and stuff like that, we can give a little leeway because people's kids are taken from, by these law enforcement people. And it's just such a hard thing to talk about that we have to be a little more open, blah blah blah. But when you're pressed for the logic, at least my answer so far in my unfinished research, I would say granting the reality, the temporary reality, to the power and the authority was the mistake, not um, denying the reality of monetary values, denying the reality of monetary value. All right, I hope that cleared that up. And um, there's two kind of giant sections before we get to the what's resolved and what's not section. But I know we're at an hour, and I really don't want to keep reading past an hour, so I'm gonna cut this off right here, and where we are, just so you guys can see it, is this reified property or sustained relation section. So we're gonna come back to that starting point in tomorrow's episode. What's tomorrow? What's tomorrow? Friday? No, tomorrow we got Aaron. Aaron's coming through. Um, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll read it with him, but I doubt it, because that's a little weird. Um, look out for that episode. Please like the video, share this video, subscribe to the channels. Um, if you're a part of, any sort of effort to really dive into exiting this system and building something new, holla at your boy. Hit the link tree that you can see on the screen. And other than that, love y'all. The long way, short way. I will see you all tomorrow. Peace and love always in all ways.